Survivor Series 1996. You probably know this show for one reason, and that's for the monumental, game-changing, needle-moving debut of Philip LaFon. Oh, and there's also this guy, Rocky Maivia, that shows up, and he has a funny haircut, but seems to have a lot of pizzazz to him. We got loads of Survivor Series elimination matches. We got a Match of the Year candidate in Bret versus Austin. And Undertaker has wings. So that's what we all asked for, I guess, right? We're in a lot of leather too. But we get more into that right here on the Apron Bump podcast.
It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get it started.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Apron Bump podcast. I am your host, the hardest part of the ring, Kyle is my name. How is everybody doing today, folks? Hope everybody's week is going swimmingly. Hope work's good. Hope life's good. Hope the family's good. Hope your prostate's good. Hope all of that. I hope all of that for you. And I mean, anything that aids in your survival is what I want. Speaking of surviving, Flash Funk didn't survive this gimmick, did he? Survivor Series 1996 is the show we are talking about today. What an interesting one. I don't know if I would call this a good show. It's definitely significant. That's for damn sure. It's a very significant show for a variety of reasons from top to bottom, really. A lot of debuts on this show. We got a few returns. We got a few coming out parties. Stone Cold versus Bret Hart is everybody talks about that WrestleMania match. But we got kind of an unsung gem here. The first Bret versus Austin match on pay-per-view. Don't know if it was as good as the WrestleMania match, but it was a darn good contest. Very, very, I'll tell you this, strong case for Match of the Year, but will it be? Well, you're just going to have to stay tuned till the end of the episode, where the hardest promotion battle of 1996 continues, where we compare WWF, WCW, and ECW. We take these three companies and we see who had the best, worst, whether it's in-ring, out-of-ring, what have you. And we'll base it off also the grade of this show. We'll do all of that at the end, but there's a point system. Currently, WWF is in the lead based on this point system. And at the end of 1996, whichever company has the highest amount of points will win and will earn a championship purchase from myself. So I'll buy a championship belt of the respective company that wins. Like I said, WWF is currently in the lead, but we'll see if anything changes. We'll see if there's any worst or best from this show. We'll see. But a lot of flux in this show, so it'll be definitely important one to check out. So, but otherwise on this show, like I said, we got a lot of Survivor Series, 4-on-4 matches, I believe they are. A lot of wacky characters, which we get into. Loads of them, a lot of last time matches we see on this show, as well as the first time. Like I said at the top, this is the debut of one Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in Madison Square Garden at Survivor Series. Gee Willikers, what a talk about drinking out of a fire hose right out the gate, bro. I mean, this is some wild stuff, but he looked good. But we'll talk more about that. We got a lot to get into. Also, Sid versus Shawn Michaels for the WWF Championship. In the main event, which we see some movement, not just in my pants, but maybe in the championship, as far as whose hands are holding it. You know what I'm saying? Talking about the championship belt, not what's in my pants. But speaking about in my pants, I'd like to get into the pants of my guest on this show. Fretz from the Fretzlemania podcast joins me on this episode. Lovely, lovely time with Mr. Fretz, as always. Go check out the Fretzlemania podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. He does a lot of retro stuff. He does Attitude Era stuff, Ruthless Aggression stuff, like early 90s stuff. Like I was on I think it was 1990 Slamboree or some weird shit. Whichever one had the Black Scorpion wrestling in a cage. We covered that one. So if you enjoy this program, you'll enjoy his program. He gets into a lot of old school stuff, also some current stuff. And he's also affiliated with Wrestle Addicts Radio, which they talk a lot about the current product as well. So go check out my boy Fretz. I'll put all the info in the description below. And yeah, so give him a follow on the social medias. Do that for me as well, at Apron Bump on all of it. Apronbump.com for all my full episodes. Hey, if you like this era of wrestling, you like mid-90s wrestling, you like New Generation, you like WCW, ECW, well, Daddy covers it all on the Apron Bump podcast. So I suggest you go to apronbump.com. You can go to the episodes tab and you can select Wrestling Wars of the 90s. And that'll bring you to chronologically all of the WWF, WCW, and ECW shows that I've covered thus far, starting from 1994 and working my way to where I'm at now, almost through 96. So, hey, if you want to be caught up for the finale of this hardest promotion battle of 1996, binge away, baby. I'll put the link in the description for that as well, or just, wherever you, on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, you know how to do all that stuff. But I think I've babbled enough. Why don't we just get into it, baby? WWF Survivor Series 1996 with myself and Fretz from the Fretzlemania podcast. So you had actually reached out to me a while ago wanting to talk about this show. What is it about Survivor Series 96 that sticks out to you?
It's one of the main things is Sid. Like, I was obsessed with this wrestler when I was 96. I would have been 12 years old, and I even named one of my pet cats after this particular wrestler. Tried to make him do the whole fist bump thing, but that would usually result in a scratch or 10. But yeah, it's all about Sid, and I could never track down this particular VHS tape, not until I was dating my high school sweetheart, who was more crazy about wrestling than I am, which I didn't think was possible, and had nearly every VHS like Coliseum video ever made.
Really?
Oh yeah. So we not long after we started dating, it would just be like, "Well, what do you want to do today? Watch wrestling? Go upstairs to the attic and take your pick." And it put my collection to shame.
So some people, when they're with a lady, they put on some, Barry Manilow, maybe some Marvin Gaye. You throw on Sid on the TV and we just see what happens. It's a good strategy.
It got things going.
Just for you though, right?
Yes.
Still gets me going, this Sid fella. I mean, he's wet, he's veiny, he's turgid. That's all you can really ask for in a wrestler. And yeah, it's definitely his coming out party for sure here in the WWE, the World Wrestling Federation. But a lot of shenanigans on the way there, though. So obviously him and Shawn in the main event. We got something I miss is the traditional Survivor Series matches, or at least I thought I missed them. I'll say this. I like these matches when there's stakes to them, aka, 03 when it's Austin and Bischoff, or when it's like even like a brand versus brand thing. This felt like kind of like a junk drawer of whoever is left on the roster. Let's just throw them on random teams and see what happens. This did give us some fun debuts on the show, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that match concept, the 5-on-5 traditional elimination matches?
I've always been a sucker for them, and I kind of wish that WWE would just do, hey, you know what, tonight here's Survivor Series, here's teams against teams, and nothing but. Like, I really love the idea they did once in 1990 where the winners faced each other at the end, but that is where I would put in a stake. Like, you say, oh, your team won, you're number 25 through 30 at the Royal Rumble, or something like that. And I just like how wacky the teams are. You had team names back in the day, like none I can name off the top of my head, like the 4x4s with Hacksaw Duggan and Neidhart and all these, or the Dream Team, the $1 Million Team with the Undertaker. Like, I'm a sucker for a multi-man match. Like, I like it. And we even had, well, there was one on the pre-show I did not even dabble in, but it featured the guns explode, Bart Gunn and Billy Gunn on opposing teams. And the only question I have about that is pertaining to today. Why hasn't Billy recruited Bart to feud with the Ass Boys?
That's a very good question. What is Bart up to nowadays? Are you abreast of his whereabouts?
He's retired. Like, I know he was on Dark Side of the Ring, I think, when they did the Brawl for All episode.
Right.
He's just retired. He's just doing his thing.
Yeah, that pretty much ended it for him. Sadly, he's like he dabbled in a little bit. Like he popped into TNA for a second, a little bit of New Japan.
Had a great run in New Japan, a really good one.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not too familiar with it, but he's even got a 1-1 mixed martial arts record. So take that for what it's worth. Not counting the Butterbean one, but
that doesn't count.
So yeah, to answer your question, I think it'd be a wise choice. I'm sure he's in great shape still. I remember that Dark Side. Now that you bring it up, Dwayne, can you fuck off? It's gonna knock over my drink. So yeah, speaking of cats fucking off, we got no. You brought up. Well, actually, I guess first of all, before we even dive into the matches, just overall Survivor Series '96 thoughts. Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in your ass. What are you thinking?
Well, there was a mostly good pay-per-view. I mean, when we get into it, like Bret Hart versus Steve Austin was a fantastic match. He had just a smorgasbord, a veritable who's that in the world of the WWE at the time, including some of these debuts. And with the benefit of hindsight, I mean, you look at people like Rocky Maivia, where it's mentioned in the match, but JR immediately is like, "There's a blue chipper right there. That's going to be the man." Holy shit! Did he ever called that one? He also called Bradshaw being a world champion in 1998.
Right.
So, yeah, and yeah, we had some duds. Like there was one Survivor Series match that ended in a no contest for no reason at all. This first one here was better than I thought it would. I haven't watched this event in like 20 years, and this opening match was freaking phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean with these I guess it's an 8-man tag, so it's not 5-on-5, but with these Survivor Series matches, you can literally just list off the names, and that's like comedy in and itself, both for like just the variety of characters, but also like you said, like it's a who's who. Like in hindsight, it's like you have all of these Hall of Famers, all of these future owners of the company, but nobody knows at the time. So it's funny watching this in hindsight and knowing the star power that would eventually come out of this. But yeah, this first match. So we got 4-on-4. We got Doug Furnas and Philip LaFawn making their debut, teaming with the Godwins to take on the team of Owen Hart, British Bulldog, and the New Rockers. Of course, Leif Cassidy and Marty Jannetty. Their last match here in WWF, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Marty's last match, because he messed up his leg or something here.
Right. Well, their last match as a team, as the New Rockers is what I'm saying. But yeah, he messed up I think he like broke his foot or sprained his ankle or something. But yeah, it was pretty much, I mean, they were going nowhere. You're never going to put New in front of a team and have them be successful unless it's the New Day. I think that's the one exception.
New Blackjacks. I mean,
New Blackjacks. I'm not too familiar. Why don't you educate me?
That's Barry Windham and Bradshaw as just the current iteration of, well, current in 97. Not long after this, like I'm been following Cultaholic on their classic reviews, and they just finished Royal Rumble 97. They just showed a vignette for the New Blackjacks because one of them related. Yeah, Barry Windham's related to one of them. So
right, yes. I mean, the match itself like didn't do a lot for me. It's more just like me. It was just interesting because I've been, as you know, I've been following ECW as well in this timeline, and I've seen a lot of Doug Furnas. Also, question: is Philip LaFawn and Dan Crawford, are they the same person?
I think one of them is Dan Crawford. I forget who's who, but yeah, I believe you're right. Yeah, that one is Crawford. They just changed his name up for reasons.
So Philip, okay, yeah, I was about to say because I saw it on the card. I was like, oh, it's a new guy, but then he comes out, and I'm like, oh, it's the same guy from ECW. So it's interesting to see them on the stage. There's a few more ECW influences on this show, but yeah, man, I don't know. What were your main takeaways from this match? I guess.
I thought that this team here, I think they're called the Can-Am Express or something like that. They're either 10 years too early. No, 5 years too early or 10 years too late. Because you would have seen these guys against the Hart Foundation and the British Bulldogs, the Fabulous Rougeaus. You would have been putting banger matches on. However, also, if you fast forward about 6 years after this and you get to SmackDown 6, I mean, these guys versus like Angle and Benoit versus Los Guerreros, Edge and Ray. Even I see big FTR vibes out of this team. And they're pulling off some moves here that the crowd hasn't seen. Like that reverse superplex, you can hear the audible gasp in the crowd. Like, what the hell was that?
I think it was Philip LaFawn, right? That did the back suplex to who was it on the Leaf Cassidy onto Al Snow, dropped him right on his face, almost his head. But I agree, man. Yeah, you were saying these guys came in like in a weird time period, like maybe in between eras where they would have been bigger. But I was going to ask that because you're more familiar with this era than I am. It's because spoiler alert, they end up being the sole survivors, I believe, right? Some of them.
Yes, they do.
So it seems like the company has a lot of stock in them. Maybe they see something in them. How long did they last in the Fed after this?
Like about another year. I think they were at Survivor Series 97 on Team Canada, even though there was at least one or two Americans on that team. It was the British Bulldog and their Furnas and LaFawn and somebody else versus like Vader and Steve Blackman. There it is. Yes. Early 98, I think they were released.
Interesting. Yeah, because I'd never really heard of them in the WWF. I mean, I know that they were big in Japan earlier in the decade, but I don't know. Maybe it's just the tag division just never had a lot of visibility to it. It was always kind of buried underneath everything else. So maybe that's why I'm not too familiar. But no, it was cool to see them get a chance to show out here. A little choppy at sometimes. Like there's one point where Doug Furnas went for a drop kick on Bulldog. I don't know what the situation. I don't know if it was supposed to be a duck or whatever, but Furnas like landed right on his head, almost paralyzed himself. And LaFawn, I don't know if he doesn't know how to run the ropes or what, but he seemed all out of sorts in this match until the end. But yeah, it was a fine little match here. It didn't really get my gooses going, but I don't know. Did it make yours quack?
It did a little bit. I was disappointed that the network dubbed out "Don't Go Messing with the Country Boys" and replaced it with some really shit sounding theme that sounds like Moo Moo Farm or Lon Lon Ranch. So disappointed that we didn't get to mess with the Country Boys. I mean, it's something probably Def Rebel may have done in their infancy. LaFawn had a really nice lariat, and Marty did that Rikishi Fatu like 360 cell. One gross part in the match where Vinius he like hawks a loogie up in the air, catches it, rubs his hands, and puts it like like he's in There's Something About Mary and the hair gel or something like that. Just nasty. Classic. Yeah, and you notice where Marty like messed up his leg. Like he even mentioned it in his Dark Side of the Ring, which was big yikes. But he effed up his ankle something fierce that I think it resulted in some horrible complications later in life, if I'm not mistaken. And it stemmed from this.
Yeah, I think he's still like not super mobile, right?
No, it may have been like threatened to have something amputated. I'm probably speaking out of turn. I don't know at all, but I know that it started some things for him. But I love to hear that Owen and Davey, they're thinking, finally, there's a team here that we can wrestle. Because Owen was bumping his ass off for these guys. Like even that overhead belly to belly that finished this match. Just phenomenal stuff.
Yeah. No, it was definitely that's kind of a theme of the show in some ways. I guess the opposite ends of the spectrum, because it's like they're transitioning to a period where it's less characters, more wrestling, but there's also like really bad characters on the show as well, which we'll touch on. But yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up Owen. He probably stuck out to me more so than anybody in this match, as far because just generally, like from start to finish, he seems like he was always factored in, and he had some fun, like a missile drop kick that came like out of frame that just like cleaned the clock off of whoever he kicked. I forget who it was. But yeah, so the eliminations, that kind of just come rapid fire. At least in the beginning, they did. Marty gets slop dropped. He's eliminated. Owen Hart hits a spin kick to Henry O'Godwin for an elimination. Bulldog gives the old stampede power slam to Phineas. He's out of here. LaFon's in. He gives that back suplex off the top rope to Leaf Cassidy for the elimination. LaFon rolls up Bulldog for the elimination. And then ultimately, Doug Furnas wins the match for his team when he hits that reverse release German suplex onto Owen, right? Was it on Owen?
I think it was on Owen.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So they win the match and they pin the tag team champions, who are currently Owen and Bulldog. So, like I said, the tag division, it's never going to be the main thing, especially in this era. But they're in the biggest company there is in America, so it's a big moment for the old Can-Am connection, right? So, but after that, we get something a little different. We got Mankind versus The Undertaker. So we've had boiler room matches, we've had buried alive matches, we've had casket matches. Here we have a match. Just a one-on-one wrestling match. You know, I mean, Paul Bearer's up there in a cage, but, you know, doesn't really factor into the match, I feel like. Am I wrong?
It's supposed to factor into the outcome where Taker would beat Mankind and then he would get some time alone with Paul Bearer. And to quote Paul Bearer, like, I'm Paul Bearer and you're not. Oh, yes. Oh, can't do the Paul Bearer impersonation with my sick. That's great. Yeah. Phantom Undertaker, Bat Undertaker, getting lowered from the ceiling with that friggin' cape he was wearing. And I can just hear someone down below going, it's the freaking Bat.
I have a lot of thoughts on Undertaker's aesthetic here. So we are transitioning away from the purple gauntlets, the purple ankle, whatever you call them. We're moving away from that era of Undertaker into a new era, which I don't know what you call, like Lord of Darkness, whatever the hell. But it's like he didn't quite figure it out yet. It was like a combination of all of the Undertakers, because he had like, I don't know, like the teeth, like the black shirt, the black pants. It was all black, but it was very pleathery. It was very metallic. Like it was, dare I say, you know, because Damian Priest is currently Bisexual Undertaker, but I think this was the original one here, because he had the ropes and I don't know what you call them that tie. It looked like a Damian Priest attire here he had his hair pulled back, even kind of. It seemed like, I don't know. What do you think of his look here? Just like his ring attire.
It was very, very goth. And like we were trying to put another layer into his character. Like, okay, he was buried alive and the purple glove sticks out. What are we going to do now? We're going to give him the goth. We're going to give him the teardrop tattoo, which in some circles means he killed a man. So there's that one. I think you're just capitalizing on something else. Like what would have been in theaters. Like no Batman movies would have been in theaters yet. Spawn was a year away. I think you were just trying to.
I have no idea.
Put a few darts in a few different dartboards here. It was a look. It was a choice.
Yeah. Sassy Undertaker. I mean, I'm all here for it. I mean, it's almost like if people listening, if you're not familiar with this, what he looks like here, just picture like Ministry Undertaker, but just a little bit more leathery, just a little bit more shiny. That's basically what you got here. But it was it looked badass. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how to feel about it, but the match itself, I mean, these two, I don't know if they're capable of having a bad match together. I mean, like we're coming fresh off the Buried Alive match. That was really good. The Boiler Room match was fun. Here, like just a standard wrestling match, but I liked it. It was even more like wrestle heavy than I even anticipated because they're coming off of these brutal street fight type matches with chairs and stairs and shovels. There was just a lot of grappling in this match, and there was a lot of Cactus Jack influence on his side. You got Undertaker just like countering headlocks and the suplexes. Like it was kind of almost like a welcome change in this rivalry, even though it on one hand, like when I was first turned this on, I was like, what, they're going from a buried alive match to just a regular wrestling match. But I don't know. I thought it worked for what it was. What'd you think about it?
I thought it was really good. Like Undertaker, instead of beating the piss out of his mortal enemy here, he's shoot wrestling, and I'm seeing a young Kurt Angle, fresh off of the Olympics, taking notes here because if you remember from No Way Out 06, Taker and Angle had an amazing match, one of Taker's best in his entire career, and they were shoot wrestling, like Undertaker pulling out like a drop toe hold and a backdrop over the barricade. That's not really shoot wrestling-y, but pulling out all the moves here that you normally don't see the dead man do. Like he was more methodical here, which was kind of strange, but it was also it was refreshing in a way.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, like other than rappelling from the ceiling with bat wings, it was very like a very humanized version of the Undertaker, which in the context of a wrestling match, it was interesting to see. I mean, it's pretty back and forth. There's some outside brawling, there's some, barricade spots and things like that, but more or less, it's a lot of just like counter wrestling, like Mankind at one point comes off the ropes for like an axe handle, but he gets caught in a choke slam goozle. But then Mankind reverses that into the mandible claw. But then Undertaker breaks the mandible claw, which I think might be the first time it was done. And then transitions from that into a choke slam. They got Mankind throwing out like cannonballs from the apron to the floor, which he hits in the beginning of the match, but then towards the end, he goes for it again, but Undertaker has it scouted now. So there's like, it's some fun psychology within this match. But also at the same point, you got, Mankind stabbing Undertaker in the face with a shank. So he's a little bit of both worlds here. So it's fun. Which was a question that I had. I don't know if you have any insight on this. Because like I said, Paul Bearer, he's hanging from a shark cage to keep him from getting involved. At some point in the match, I think Mankind has Taker in like a chin lock or whatever. And I see on the mat, there's the shank that he uses. I don't know if it's something specific. It's like a white piece of something sharp that he ends up using on Undertaker. But it's just on the mat, not being acknowledged. Nobody's going for it. So my question is, was Paul supposed to drop that later in the match, but it just like slipped out of his hand?
I think what I'm talking about? Yeah, I didn't actually notice this, but I'm remembering some podcasts covering this in the past, like New Gen and Cultaholic and all them. Mm-hmm. And I seem to remember that spot being discussed. I think it was kind of a botch. Like it was supposed to get that Abdullah the Butcher foreign object, like the sharpened, splintered piece of wood that you're going to get color on the dead man. I think Paul was holding on to that, or it fell out of his pocket or something. And even the commentary here was making allusions of, Paul Bearer basically pissing off of the shark cage for being so scared of heights, which, I mean, I would too. That's no.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I couldn't imagine. I was watching. I was like, it's pretty high up there. And Paul Bearer is a big fella, or as Vince McMahon puts it, he's bulbous. He's very bulbous. So the cage held him though. God bless it. But eventually Mankind finds the shank and starts stabbing Undertaker in the face with it right in front of the referee, by the way. There's a lot of shoddy officiating throughout this entire show, by the way. This is one example. Like Undertaker, like Mankind has Taker in the corner. He's just ching, 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 ching in the face with this. And then Undertaker just busts out the tombstone out of nowhere for the win. So it was kind of a weird finish, which makes me think that there was supposed to be more of a climax of Paul Bearer like dropping the thing, then maybe Mankind grabs it and then misses or something. I don't know. But everything before that though, I thought was really solid. I really enjoyed it. And Post-match stuff was whatever, but I don't know. What'd you think about old Terry Bam Bam Gordy coming out, aka the Executioner? Because
God bless him.
did you see that Dark Side of the Ring?
That was rough, man. That was so sad. Like I didn't know. Like I knew he had an episode on an airplane, but I didn't know he was
Yeah.
in '96. He was like so far gone. Like it was very very sad, and he still had like the wrestling brain, but then everything else was
Mm-hmm.
no. It's God bless him. Like
Autopilot.
autopilot. Give him credit for even attempting anything after literally being clinically dead for a few minutes, and then coming back. This is the only thing he knew and the only thing he loved, and I give him credit for trying, but man, the execution, pun intended, was not good.
It was because the Undertaker wins, and like you said, the stipulation was if he wins, he gets Paul Bearer all alone in the ring or whatever. So they lower the cage with Paul in it. It slowly lowers, but as it approaches the mat, the Executioner comes out, attacks the Undertaker just enough so Paul can get away. I think Executioner ends up taking like a choke slam or maybe just like a boot. He gets knocked out of the ring some way, and Executioner, Mankind, Paul Bearer, they all scurry away. And so Undertaker won the match, but he did not accomplish his ultimate goal. So that kind of leaves me. It's like, what did this match really accomplish? Like, I feel like there could have been more substance to like why this match was happening, but I don't know. Undertaker's coming back from the literal dead, so I guess that's all you can ask for, huh?
Yeah, and I think this just sets up a bit of a benefit of hindsight. You're setting up another story arc between Taker and Bearer. Like Taker would have a match with the Executioner at December's in your house. And then
so yeah, I guess that's what it sets up is Taker versus Executioner.
Yeah, then another few months you're getting another wrinkle in the storyline with Kane being mentioned, who ironically is on this card.
Sure is. But before we get there, we got another Survivor Series traditional 8-man tag team elimination match. We got the team of Mark Marrow, the Stalker, aka Barry Windham, Jake Roberts, and Rocky Maivia making his debut here, taking on the team of Crush, Goldust, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and Jerry Lawler. I mean, you just look at these 8 people. It's like the epitome of new generation. What the fuck are we? So many colors and sparkles and outrageous characters. It's just a funny collection of people. But this was probably the best Survivor Series match. It's like traditional 8-man match on the card, I would say. I don't know. Do you agree? Disagree?
I might still go with Furnas and LaFon, but this one was still enjoyable for what it was, and the things that it set up with The Rock's future. Sonny's coming out here to commentary, and like the fans at the ramp. I have some things to say. Like one fan tries to grab Sonny's tits. Like one girl tries to accost Shawn Michaels on the way to the ring. I'm kind of glad they moved the entranceway at MSG. I love the look. Like the WrestleMania 10 stage stands out among the goats of Mania stages, in my opinion. And this one too, that sliding cityscape door. But it's so damn narrow. And he got these attendants who can only do so much. Yeah. And I love just the little bickering between Sonny and JR on commentary. It's like, have you been downloaded yet today? I hope she hasn't been downloaded today, but
yeah, no, you said it. But yeah, it was Sonny on commentary. It wasn't the worst commentary I've ever heard, but I didn't need it. I don't really know what purpose it served. I guess, who is she even managing at this point? She hops around from guy to guy so fast, it's hard to keep track. I guess she's kind of with Helmsley. Not really, though.
No, she wasn't with anyone.
She's no longer with the Guns.
She had just finished with Farouk because Farouk would be debuting a new gimmick and theme and everything at this show. She's just being like a eye candy. Like she's waiting for, who did she manage in 90? And the next people she actually managed, I think, were LOD 2000 after this. So she's just out there just to pop the crowd and probably some people's pants. And
yeah, yes, there's a lot of popping going on, but I mean, there's so much to get into here. First of all, Triple H, or Hunter Hearst Helmsley, is the new Intercontinental Champion. He won this title by aligning with Mr. Perfect to screw over Mark Marrow. However, Mr. Perfect has skedaddled from the WWF. There was a lot that went into it. I think it had to deal with the Lloyds of London policy he had.
Yeah.
He wanted to come back and wrestle, but there was holdups with that insurance policy, and then they lost that policy. But then Vince offered him a contract to compensate for it. But then WCW offered him a bigger contract, so he went there. So it was a lot of tomfoolery and shenanigans behind the scenes. But I don't know, man. I mean, because Perfect, he was just commentating at this point. But were you hankering for an in-ring return at this point, or do you even remember this?
Oh, I was watching Monday Night Raw almost week to week at this point. This was around the start of my weekly watching obsession with wrestling. Although I've been watching bit by bit since like 93, but no, I knew Mr. Perfect. I'm like, yeah, I want to see him come back. I want to see him come back and beat Triple H, except he aligned with him. Shit. Yeah, I didn't know what Lloyds of London was back then. Like him and Rick Rude were two of the big ones that were on that whole deal. But because of that same thing, and maybe another bit in the contract, Perfect couldn't appear for WCW or wrestle for WCW until I think his first match was War Games 97 at Fall Brawl, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of legal things happening behind the scenes because he took the contract with WCW while he still had one with WWF. So they had to work around a lot of things. And for people unfamiliar, Lloyds of London it deals with if you suffer a career-ending injury, but if you get back into the profession, then you lose that payout or whatever. I don't know. There's a lot that goes into it, but that's generally what was happening here. So you got that. Triple H is here. He's the captain of his team. And let's look who else is on his team. You got Jerry Lawler, who is here for whatever, he's still wrestling. Continuing his feud with Jake Roberts, because we all wanted that to keep going. Goldust is here. Crush. What do you think of this version of Crush? There's a lot of iterations of this man from Hawaii. What did you think of I don't know, Biker Crush? Is that what he is?
Jailbird. This was after he was literally in prison for, I think, drugs, something like that. Oh. So yeah, and they were building this into his gimmick. He wouldn't be Biker Crush for another few months after this, but this is also that awkward phase between Jailbird Crush and Nation of Domination, which is the same gimmick, just surrounded by other people. Ironically, with Clarence Mason.
Yeah. So you got one gimmick playing off of a guy's past in prison. And then on the other side, you got Jake Roberts, who they're playing off of his problems with alcoholism. Man, what a time. What a time in wrestling. But we got Mark Marrow's on the other team as well. Opposite of Hunter Hearst Helmsley, of course. He just took his title from him. Also on that babyface team, you got the Stalker, otherwise known as Barry Windham. What's going on with this? Camo pants.
Yeah, he had this camo forest dweller, assassin camo solid snake kind of gimmick, but he came out here looking like USA Express Barry Windham and not G.I. Joe Barry Windham. It was weird. I don't know why he didn't have the face paint. Maybe there was something, or he just said, yeah, I'm not doing that shit. So he came out just looking like someone's Uncle Barry.
Looked like Sam Elliott. I don't know if you gathered that one or not. You know who that is?
I could see it. Yeah, Sam Elliott from The Ranch, man. Great show.
Yeah, he looks just like him if you put them side by side with the crazy mustache and the gray-ish hair.
Oh, I see it now.
But yeah, he's here. Yeah, I mean, he's just no face paint. It's just representative of what this gimmick was, if you could even call it that. It was just a half-ass thing to give Barry Windham something, but I don't know. Maybe we missed the boat on old Barry here, and also rounding out the team, of course, the debuting Rocky Maivia. And you said it earlier. He comes out and JR is like, "This is the guy. This is going to be the future of this company." And fuck, like you said, nailed it with that one. It's I mean, it's in his blood. He was very. I'll tell you this because he comes out with the goofy tassels and the bright blue tights and the I don't even know what you would call his hair, the Jerry curls.
Kind of
But
an afro.
I was very like a half-assed afro. But I was very I was fascinated by his wrestling style here because he was definitely like trying to be Rocky Johnson Jr. It felt like with like all the punches and the dancing between the punches, like the Muhammad Ali style kind of stuff. So it was very funny just watching early Rock here because it's such a departure from what he would end up being. Although you could see the athleticism, like the kip ups and all that stuff that he would go on to perfect. But I don't know. I thought Rock's first match here, because you always hear the thing like he came as a baby face. People didn't like it, but we're not there yet. He still has some goodwill. I thought he looked really good here. What about you?
I thought it was a solid start to his career. I mean, now that you said that, I could definitely see the parallels between him and his father in the ring. He was trying to find his style, and I think he would probably eventually get there in about a year's time when he would become the biggest heel in the company. Crush with a great line here saying that his team is a well-oiled machine of destruction. A little wordy, but I thought it was kind of funny. And Crush's theme, it's like a WCW version of Crazy Train, I noticed here.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. I like that. I didn't notice that.
Yep. Sonny's cracking jokes
Crush,
about Sable's fake breasts and all that. And they say Mark Merrill's like, I'm going to have a revelation, which was the name of Jake's snake.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that. Jake comes out with his snake, his unsheathed snake. No bag over his snake. He just comes out with it out in the open, throws it in the ring, and I don't know if it really comes into play though.
No, it just
did Revelation have any offense in this one?
No. And they got out of there because Earthquake was probably somewhere in the crowd waiting to settle on another snake.
Right. No, he's John Tenta now, pal. Come on now, he's not an avalanche. He's
he
not
might
an
have been
earthquake. He's not a shark.
He might have been one of those things by now. Half a beard.
He's not the shark. He's John Tenta. He's John Tenta, pal. He's a man.
Oh, that's right.
I mean, haven't you heard? He's a man. He's not a fish.
Big old sack of silver dollars.
I'll show you a sack of silver dollars. But yeah, this match happens. I mean, maybe the highlight of this was just seeing Rock and Triple H going at it. It's like these are just two. You got the debuting guy, and you got Triple H, who is, he's Intercontinental Champion, but he's still kind of low on the card. They're going at it to like relative, like the crowd's not super into it, but man, if they only knew what would be like in like 2 years, right? That was their ladder match, Survivor Series, or no, SummerSlam '98, right?
Yes.
Or is this Survivor Series?
SummerSlam.
So less than 2 years from now, they would be lighting the, and that was also in Madison Square Garden, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So 2 years in the same building, they'd be lighting it on fire, and they would both own the company in a couple decades. So really just funny to see how time works sometimes. But I thought it was a fun match. Towards the end, I think it's Goldust and Crush versus The Rock. They're the final three. Crush goes for his dreaded heart punch, but accidentally hits his teammate Goldust. Rock hits the crossbody onto Crush to pin him, and then hits his shoulder breaker, which was his finisher, coming out the gates here. It's a Goldust for the win. So Rocky Maivia comes out as the winner among all of these stars. Again, just like Furnas and LaFon, we're really heading to, it feels like a new era, maybe an era that is kind of attitude-y, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, I thought it was fun. Maybe just from an historical perspective, but I thought this was a fun watch.
Oh, from a historical perspective, absolutely. And you had Jake the Snake like baiting Jerry Lawler, like faking him out, hitting the DDT. I thought was a really good touch and a good little notch in their feud. Heart punch, devastating move, absolutely devastating. Triple H is getting the rope assisted abdominal stretch, and the referee, like, he's not having his shit, and he kicks Triple H off of it. Like, when I'm at just before Judgment Day 2000, and there's a little feud between Earl Hebner and Triple H, something that you and I are going to have to talk about in a little bit. But man, the win here from Rocky was great, and I noticed his music at the end was super delayed, like Kevin Dunn was asleep at the switch or something.
Well, the music was delayed, but also Rock didn't really know where the hard cam was. So he has some things to work out. I mean, he wins the match, and it's just, yay! Yay! Like, turn around, RM. Come on now, what are we doing? But yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up the Jake DDT to King, because like I said, hopefully that fucking ties up their little feud. Because King was like mocking Jake in this match, like, oh, he's drunk, he's stumbling, but then Jake just comes right out with a DDT to him, gets him out of there, and so yeah, there was some fun stuff in this match, but the heart punch is probably the highlight, I would say.
Absolutely. That and Sonny just making all horrible jokes about people, like, Jake not passing the bar, and there's something about Sable, I forget what it was. Their feud's getting underway. Yay.
Yeah, that's where women are in wrestling at this point, unfortunately. But after that match, we get quite the little dandy here. It is for the number one contendership for the world title. We got a returning Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. Who, man? So I've never seen this match before. I was excited to watch it, and I was very, very satisfied. The way I would describe this match is just very gritty. Like, it's no bullshit. It feels like a struggle. It feels like two guys, fighting each other. It's like it's very wrestling heavy, but with a good amount of brawling sprinkled on top of it. I thought it was just, I don't know. These guys have great chemistry. I'm not breaking any new ground here, but this Stone Cold is really catching fire here. We're fresh off of the Pillman's got a gun angle where Steve went to Brian Pillman's house, and Pillman, everybody thought he shot Stone Cold, but he ended up not. And Stone Cold like tore his house apart. And you got Stone Cold coming out on Raw being like, yeah, if you put an S in front of Hitman, that's what I think about Bret Hart. Like, we're finally getting into this era of Stone Cold. We're leaving the $1 million ringmaster shit behind, and he is on fire at this point. But yeah, this was a incredible match. What'd you think about it?
It was a technical masterclass. I love the interviews here before where Austin's like, cliches are cliches and ass whoopings are ass whoopings. MSG loves Stone Cold. This is when I was starting to notice the more smarky crowd, especially when we get to the main event. Like, New York, they've always been like the real, like, everyone's like, oh, Chicago, no, MSG. MSG is like the smarky smart crowd. There was a wrestling sign. I don't know what it said, but it was written on a bed sheet. And I just want to know how many fluid stains are just waving around out there amongst the people. Kind of grosses me out just a little bit.
Yeah. If you put a black light over that arena, it's nothing but light you would see. So, but yes, you were saying
it just nasty. MSG ain't a church, but it's holy ground. And on commentary here, I noticed that JR essentially foreshadows the submission match at WrestleMania 13 between these two folks. I don't know if he alludes to it or be like, oh, this should be a submission match, because you have Austin, who hasn't won with $1 Million Dream since March, versus the sharpshooter. Right. And right away we get, Steve doing the double bird. And I just wrote down here, no notes, enjoy match, Piper Hart finish from WrestleMania 8. And how good was Austin pre-neck surgery? Like, I forgot how solid of a technical wrestler he was before that thing happened. But this might be like the best match of 1996 across all of the companies. Honestly, this was very, very good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Austin was just like, because it's not like he's throwing out moonsaults or fucking like crazy pile drivers or anything. He's just like explosive. He attacks the mat even when he's like. There's one part in this match where like he charges Bret, but Bret counters into a hammerlock and just drives him head first into the mat. It's like kind of like a whatever spot, but it's just there's like so much aggressiveness and intensity in this match. Intensity is probably the word for it. Like that, you felt like these guys were trying to win a contest. And I think ultimately, like, you can have all the high spots, you can have all the false finishes, all the hoopla, but just give me guys that are kicking the shit out of each other. And these guys portrayed that amazingly, I thought. But yeah, so like in the beginning, because the story here is what Bret or Steve challenged Bret, and Bret accepted because he deemed Steve as the best wrestler in the company, maybe other than himself. So it's obviously it's going to be very wrestling heavy, which Bret kind of has the advantage in the beginning when they're chain wrestling. But then it makes its way to the outside, and that's where the tide kind of turns for Steve, because that's where he thrives more in the brawling aspect. There's a lot of like barricade spots. I think Bret gets catapulted into the announce table, like behind it, and then they're like brawling underneath it, you know, the Austin punches. And so there's some good stuff here. I mean, the Austin, talking about the pre-neck break, you don't see post-neck break Austin bust out a top rope superplex. So that was very interesting to see in this match. Double pin afterwards, which is a fun little near fall. Also, I just want to point out, I love this era of the Stone Cold Stunner, because it would go on to be like a kick stunner like every time. But I like how in this match, like Steve's looking away from Bret. Bret like comes up behind him, and then Steve just grabs him from behind and hits him with the stunner, almost like the RKO's hit, like, and kind of come out of nowhere. That's kind of how it was executed at this point. And it was kind of just a little more like kind of gritty, a little rough around the edges, but it looked like it fucking hurt. So, yeah. Any spots in particular stick out to you in this one?
No, I prefer the non-kick stunner, like straight up. That goes for Owens. That goes for Johnny Ace. That goes for Austin. Just the kick. I don't get it, but yeah, I didn't take a lot of notes during this match here, but they were trading their submission holds, and JR kept talking about them being in a submission match or alluding to one itself, but we'll get there in a few months, and that and because of that, this match kind of gets tossed by the wayside, gets kind of forgotten, but it absolutely shouldn't be. Like, if anyone's listening, watching this, and you haven't seen this match, get on the Peacock or the network, depending on where you're located. Netflix, if you're listening to this in 2025, get on this. Get on this match immediately. It's very well done, and I thought it was good character from the both of them. Like, Bret Hart's been away. He went back home to Canada for a little bit. He went on I think it was Lonesome Dove. He went on just a Canadian I think it was like a pioneer kind of show up here. I didn't watch a lot of it myself. I think around this time he was also on The Simpsons with this place has got old man stink. Why would I want a picture of a pitiful pencil neck geek? And of course, Bret Hart was not the only wrestler in the neighborhood, because the Shrieking Sheik lived 3 doors away. Great technical stuff, and I still can't get that damn bedsheet sign out of my head. Just
it ruined it for you, huh?
Almost.
But yeah, in talking about the submissions, I thought it was very interesting, because I was expecting the $1 Million Dream, because that's when he came in using. But he also busts out a Texas Cloverleaf, which makes sense. I'm almost surprised he didn't like make that like a staple in his offense. But Bret's able to fight out of that one. But Bret's legs get worked on in that Cloverleaf for a while. So when he gets whipped into the corner later in the match, his leg gives and he goes sliding into the corner, and his back smacks the ring post, which just looked brutal. But the psychology behind it was on point. So So it's just a lot of that in this match. I was like you. I didn't take a lot of notes on this. It was just a fun watch. It was just a great wrestling match. There's not much you can say about it, but ultimately at the finish, great finish, by the way. So Steve locks in that $1 million dream, or the Cobra Clutch, whatever you know it as. Bret runs up the turnbuckles, rolls back, and ends up pinning Steve Austin out of nowhere, getting a cheeky win and setting up a rematch here in a few months that I think was pretty okay. So, but this match, like you said, an unsung gem, and I think it's definitely worth anybody listening. Go back and watch this match. It's a good one.
Yeah, if there's anything you're going to watch from this show, watch this one.
You don't want to watch fake Diesel and fake Razor?
Not particularly, no. I'd rather watch Sid talk about Destiny.
I don't think anybody did. my conquer. Oh, I forget what the quote is, but it's so good.
I will do anything I have to go to my destiny and make my conquer.
But yeah, so we have one more Survivor Series elimination match. We got the team of quote unquote Diesel and quote unquote Razor Ramon and Vader and the new Nation of Domination era of Farouk versus the team of Savio Vega, Yokozuna, Jimmy Snuka, and a debuting Flash Funk, aka Too Cold Scorpio. So much, a lot to unpack. I mean, where do we even start here with this one? Where would you like to start here as far as these characters go?
I think this was the first time we heard "We Are the Nation of Domination" followed by PG-13 wrapping them to the ring. I think this is the first, because Farouk had the shiny cock helmet on a couple of weeks ago, and now he's bringing in this this Black Panthers-esque thing. Like, D'Lo Brown wasn't here yet. It was just him and PG-13. I think Clarence Mason may have been involved, but you didn't have the entourage that he would get eventually. So that was a debut. Flash Funk, this is his first match, like Too Cold Scorpio's first match in WWE. This is Yoko's first match back in a while, and Snuka was like a mystery partner for this team. I think either someone was supposed to be in this match, or they're just like, hey, let's give someone a nostalgia pop here. Lou Albano, Super Mario himself, comes down to the ring before the match here, and, you know, to quote him, if you do drugs, you'll go to hell before you die. If you get that reference, can of Coke to you. PG-13 talking about bum rushing your mother. Rude. Just rude. No. Corny is on commentary here.
Talk on here.
No, Corny is on commentary here, and he is pissed about. Well, what isn't he pissed? He's pissed at pretty much everything and everyone in this match, like about Yokozuna being here. Yokozuna allegedly was close to 700 pounds around this time.
This was his last ever WWF match here, by the way.
Yeah, he would get shipped off to Fat Camp, and then him and Vader would go and stash away buckets of chicken, allegedly. Like, okay,
I believe it.
I loved Yoko. This was so sad to see because I loved Yoko, but man,
he's probably pushing like 650 here,
almost 7 allegedly, like probably like 6.
You know what? I mean, he's huge, and it is sad to see, but by golly, that's the most athletic 700 pounder I've ever seen in my life. I think I haven't seen many of them, but he's the top.
He is still pretty agile. I mean, he's nowhere near. Like, if you see his Coquina run from NWA in like 89, 90, he is a totally different guy. He's like what Solo Sikoa is today. He is quick. He's impactful. And as he packed on the pounds, he got slower, but there was still that little bit of agility and edge left in him. Pulling out a sick Uranagi during this match. Just his cousin's backstage take. Oh, I can take
onto Vader.
Yes, like that's impressive enough as it is. Like, both of you guys are over 400 pounds, and that think, oh, that's nothing. No, that's still fucking impressive. Like that's wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at all these names, and it's crazy. I think, and you can maybe you have a different opinion. I think the guy in this match with the most successful run in this company is Fake Diesel, which is you probably would not have guessed that at the time. But obviously, for anyone unfamiliar, it's Kane. This is before the Kane character. He was Fake Diesel, along with Fake Razor. Storyline is that JR brought these two guys in. I don't know if they're just trying to capitalize on the NWO. I don't know what the end game was for these two, but they're here. They're just playing the characters as if they were Razor and Diesel, but they had a lot of spotlight on them, weirdly. So I don't know. What did you? Because you were watching this. What did you make of Fake Diesel and Fake Razor at the time?
Well, I knew of I was watching WCW too, so I knew of NWO, and I thought this was just kind of attempting to give an FU to Hall and Nash, because well, it's like, oh hey, you guys, like this character can be interchangeable. We can pass this on to God knows who. Like it was nothing more than just maybe a ratings ploy, because he's like, oh yeah, you did the Last in Your House, the Buried Alive. He's like, I'm gonna have Diesel and Razor on Raw tomorrow night. Then of course you're gonna get all these eyes tuning in. Then you see, okay, that's obviously Isaac Yankem right there. I can see your teeth. You're Jerry Lawler's dentist, and I don't know who Rick Bogner is, but if you want to look up some underrated workers, like Rick Bogner, was he in your ECW days at one point, or am I thinking of someone else?
He did have one ECW match, at least that I've covered, but it was not very good. So maybe I need to delve more into his archives. But from what I've seen from him, I haven't been impressed.
I think he was. I might be thinking of someone else, but I think he was all right. And I have a note here I thought was neat. You had Kane hitting the jackknife powerbomb on the artist formerly known as Quang. You had Jimmy Snuka splashing Vader. I just love like this match in particular. You had people with so many different hats at one point. You had Unabomb, you had Fake Diesel, you had Kane, you had Too Cold Scorpio, and then you had Quang and everything. Just it was a smorgasbord, but it was just a kind of a shame that this ended in a double DQ after a couple of eliminations. Just all hell breaks loose, and nah, you're out.
Yeah, it's because I'm looking at this match, I'm like, who's going to take the pin in this match? I guess Savio gets eliminated with the jackknife, like you mentioned. I think it's Savio.
Yes.
And like Fake Razor gets the Superfly splash because he has Snuka there. He's got to splash somebody, so he gets rid of Fake Razor. But it's like you're bringing in Flash Funk, Two Gold Scorpio, and it's like, where are we gonna have him lose in his debut match? You got Yokozuna. I mean, I feel like if he gets pinned, we're not gonna be able to get this big bastard up. Farouk is debuting a new gimmick. You can't have him lose. You got Vader, who is still kind of quasi in the main event picture. So, but like you said, it just ends up Diesel just clocks Snuka like a crazy chair shot in like the back of the head. It seemed like maybe it was just the back, but it looked violent. It sounded violent. And then I think Savio comes in with the chair and he starts taking it. So there's like sword fighting with chairs, and it just ends up in a schmaz. The ref calls for the bell, throws the match out, but just a fun collection of guys. It's fun seeing Scorpio here in Madison Square Garden when the night before, 24 hours earlier, he was wrestling in the ECW arena for November to Remember. So that was a recent episode of mine. So one day later, he's here wrestling on one of the biggest shows of the year. And a goofy gimmick, but like, I don't know. In ECW, he was very dance heavy too. So it's not like a super departure from who he is anyways. So, and he gets his chance to shine here. He has a crazy moonsault to the outside on a Vader. Big ECW chance, which was fun. Yeah, I think and you brought up Farouk. debut. This is the debut of the Nation of Domination version of him. And the presentation was just awesome, man, because you have PG-13, like you mentioned, wrapping him out to the ring. And then you got Clarence Mason. You got like 2 other guys in suits. So he does kind of have an entourage going at this point, which makes him feel like a big deal. And like ultimately anything that gets him away from that goofy helmet and the stupid blue tights is upgrade. So cool to see that materialize. Cool to see Yoko and Vader go at it and Yoko's last match. I mean, anything else in this match? It is not a lot happening wrestling wise. It's just fun characters collectively in one segment, I think.
And there's just a lot of things that are just getting put on the back burner. Like, we're waiting to get to the fireworks factory that is Farouk versus Ahmed Johnson. Like, Ahmed would be cleared within months. Like, I honestly thought he would get involved in this match, but he was still pretty hurting. And again, you have Flash Funk having his debut match. I'm like, okay, we're going to have to get this guys in a good singles match on Raw the next night, which I think he does. You're trying to shine a spotlight on that. And then, Savio's kind of dead in the waters. He would be joining the Nation in just a little while. Snuka was just the nostalgia pop, literally. So you're trying a few different things here that we're going to see pay off in dividends just a little later. It should have been versus Ahmed and friends, but we couldn't get here yet medically.
Yeah. And on Snuka, I don't know if we mentioned this. He's so they had the Hall of Fame the previous night, and Snuka was inducted in that class. So that kind of ties into why he's here. Do you have any recollection of other members of that Hall of Fame class? I have a list here, but just want to see if you remember any.
Not in the slightest. Maybe like someone like Freddie Blassie is the only person that would come to mind. Maybe Antonio Rocca. Who would they have inducted back? Fabulous Moolah?
No. So we got Jimmy Snuka. We got Killer Kowalski.
Ooh.
Pat Patterson.
Mm-hmm.
Vince McMahon Sr. Johnny Rods, who was going to make an appearance in an upcoming TNA episode. Captain Lou Albano, who we saw earlier. And one guy I'm not too familiar with. Baron Michael Scaluna.
Oh, yeah.
Scicluna.
I know exactly who that is. I think he was the one that invented the claw. I think. So everyone talks about Von Erichs. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure Baron did it in like the 50s, if I'm not mistaken. But I know that name.
Right. Yeah, it's a pretty powerful class here, but so that's, ties into why Snuka's here, and cool to see him do a splash, and he might have murdered somebody in the past, but do a cool splash. That's all we need from you. But anyways, we got a couple murderers on this show. So we got Snuka, Marty Jannetty. Anybody else on this show murder anybody? Let's see here. Doug Furnas, I don't think so. Sonny, it's 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty stacked lineup in that realm, but
real murderer's row.
That's fun. I like that. I like what you did there. Well, we got the main event here. These guys, speaking of murder, these guys kill it here. Well, kind of. So the WWF Championship's on the line. We got Shawn Michaels defending against Psycho Sid. Allegedly, this was supposed to be Vader, but Sid was just over like Rover at this point. So they went with him, and I think probably a good decision. I mean, this was a weird match. I don't know if it's good, bad. I don't know. It was a weird one. I don't know. What do you think about this main event here?
I thought it was all right, like a good back and forth. This was a great, David and Goliath kind of match. Sid is so over at this point, and man, Michaels was getting booed out of the building at some points in this match. Sid, he literally might be on like my top 10 favorite wrestlers of all time. Like, it cannot be understated how much I loved this guy when I was a kid and how gutted I was when he left just months after this. Go to WCW and have a good run, but I seem to remember one bit. I think it was either leading up to this match or leading up to the Royal Rumble match where Pete Lothario son of Jose Lothario, Sean's manager mentor, getting powerbombed through it. It looked like a bench at the hockey arena. Like it was just this little bench in the dressing room. It reminded me. I grew up watching my family members play hockey in like a small town rinky-dink arena. It reminded me of that, and it looked like it hurt. But yeah, again, I mentioned it earlier. Some fan tried to accost Sean on his way to the ring, like just try to grab him and all that. And Sid having his promo about sanity and God knows what. Vlad was clearly cited several times during this event, even hugging Sid at the end when he won the title. Shawn Michaels just bumping his ass off. They were working the knee. You got Sid hitting a Cobra Clutch, $1 Million Dream. We got hitting Jose with the camera, and then he hits Shawn Michaels with it for good measure. That's your new champion.
Yeah, just like, because like you said, the crowd they were not pro Shawn Michaels at this point. They were very pro Sid, but it almost felt like, because the match was because Shawn was working the leg of Sid. He was hitting with like chop blocks and leg submissions and leg bars, and like Sid would start to like fire up and he would get going, he would hit the ropes, and then Shawn would like cut him off, just drop kick his knees out from under him. So it's almost like it felt like Shawn was kind of leaning into being a heel here, just kind of chopping him down. Sid would make the comeback. So the match is kind of structured as if Sid was the babyface here. But then, like you mentioned, Sid ends up grabbing the camera, like the 1996 bulky fucking cameras that'll kill a man, grabs it, hits Jose Lothario off the apron, which, why are you on the apron, Jose? Maybe you deserve that. But Sid hits Jose with the camera, knocks him off the apron. Shawn takes advantage of the distraction, hits the sweet chin music onto Sid, but he sees that Jose is on the floor, so he goes out to check on him, and commentary's putting this over like Jose's having a heart attack, which feels unnecessary. But that's what we got going on here. Sid, because Shawn is tending to Jose, he's like a father figure to him. He's like, "Are you okay?" And Sid comes out, grabs Shawn by the hair, throws him in the ring. They start going at it. Shawn goes for a crossbody onto Sid, but Sid gets out of the way, and Sid pulls the ref in the way, and Shawn takes out the ref. And then ultimately Sid's able to hit Shawn Michaels with the same camera, and then hits the power bomb to get the win. So we got a new world champion, Sid, which is crazy. That's what the crowd wanted. It was a cool moment. Like you said, Sid was super over. I'm quickly becoming a huge Sid mark myself, so I was a big fan watching this, but I don't know. Did we need the camera stuff? Did we need the Jose stuff? I feel like he could have just, I guess the rest of the match was just okay, but I don't think the camera and the Jose enhanced this at all. I don't think.
Maybe Shawn didn't really want to lose clean. He wanted to get a dusty finish because lest we forget, this is Click backstage douchebag, like top of the food chain, Shawn at this point in time. So maybe he didn't want to go very clean. And it's kind of ironic we're talking about Vader here. Next month's In Your House is called It's Time. And Vader is, I don't think he's even on the show. Maybe he's on the pre-show, but he is not there. It's
right, which
very
goes to the theory of this was probably Vader's crowning moment. But Shawn, I mean, they had the whole kerfuffle at SummerSlam where Shawn came off the top rope and Vader didn't get out of the way, and then Shawn kicked Vader in the head and yelled at him in the middle of the match. So I imagine they didn't like each other, and Shawn probably wasn't going to put over Vader and have him take the title. So let's give it to Sid, who happens to be hotter than Vader at this point. But yeah, it's crazy that like, if he's not on the card, that's wild that they just kept it as It's Time. Like, I don't know, what would they call it if it was like a Sid themed In Your House? Who the man?
Hoodman, Psycho, Powerbomb, Symphony.
I'll have my destiny. I'll reach my conquer. Right?
In your house, reach for conquer. I like that. That's a good one.
I don't know shit. Something. They
Half
could
a
have done
brain.
something.
Half a brain.
But half the brain that in your house 12, half the brain that I have.
He is nowhere on this card, not even in the dark matches.
I mean, I guess its time is kind of evergreen, right? It could be time for anything, really.
Brock has had a dark match on this show. Are you freaking kidding me?
Hell yeah, Brockus era. Now we're on fire. Now business is booming. Let's get it.
Let's go.
Oh, well, no Brockus on this show, unfortunately. But overall, man, that brings Survivor Series to a close. It closes with Sid on top, and Sean's on his way to lose his smile at some point. But very interesting era. I mean, we talked about all these matches that had debuts, repackages, last matches for certain people. So it's a company in flux at this point. So it's a very interesting time, especially for me watching this all for the first time. So with that, I mean, any other thoughts on Survivor Series 96?
I thought it was kind of a turning point leaning towards the Attitude Era. There was a specific time where, in my opinion, where it actually begins. And that would be a few months from now when Monday Night Raw turns into Raw is War, and you get the classic. It started out with The Beautiful People by Marilyn Manson. That was the theme for about a couple of months. And then you got thorned in your eye, which would stick until Union Underground changed it up in 2002. Yeah, Beautiful People, but then that became SmackDown's theme for like a year, but it was Raw's for just a little bit in time. It was a great, interesting transition bit. You see little bits and pieces of Attitude in here. Even before that, with Pillman's Got a Gun, you knew they were throwing shit at the fan and seeing what was going to stick here. And Sid being on top, I thought, okay, I marked out Sid mark, but I knew, that's not going to be permanent. This is a stopgap because you're getting the rise of Austin. You're getting, Bret Hart is coming back up, and there are so many wheels turning here. It's truly fascinating to go back, and I loved going back to revisit this. This was a fun trip.
Yeah, man, 96 WWF. It's such an easy watch every time, even if the matches aren't particularly good, which a lot of times they are. It's just a fun watch. And yeah, like, I don't even know if we mentioned this in the Bret and Austin match. JR in the beginning's like, yeah, there's no clowns here. There's no trash man. It's just athletic wrestlers. So it's like we're transitioning away from those goofy characters slowly, not completely, because we still do it. We had the Sultan in the pre-show. We had, we have Gold Dust and we have all that shit. But definitely an interesting period. And speaking of interesting, I think you're pretty interesting. And if you like interesting, listeners, I suggest you go check out the Fretzlemania podcast. First of all, Fretz, appreciate you coming on, talking some wrestling once again. Where can everybody find your beautiful face and listen to you and tickle the listeners with your tongue?
Well, you can get all those things by following me on my social medias. That's Twitter, Instagram. I forget Blue Sky exists sometimes. I deleted Threads, but Fretzlemania, that's Fretzle Mania. I am, of course, on Wrestle Addict Radio. Say it with me, folks. The cure for the Common Wrestling Podcast, home to the Kings of the Rings podcast, streaming every Tuesday night with King Ricky, Willie T, and K-Fabe. You got Nate the Effing Great, Brace for Impact. He is in TNA. He is in the Main Event Mafia storyline right now, and I'm going to be talking to him in the very near future about something there. And Mr. YLP, the Young Lions Perspective. You get your news of the week. You get your predictions and your previews with Zach every Saturday. I'm going through the Attitude Era right now. Like, I'm on the road to Judgment Day 2000, which, well, ironically enough, is going to have you on the show for that. So that's an Iron Man match between The Rock and Triple H we have to look forward to. And yeah, I dabble with some modern wrestling too. Like, I reviewed WrestleMania this year. I'll probably do SummerSlam, Money in the Bank. Money in the Bank's in my backyard, but I won't be able to go. So yeah, if you like retro, modern, you like all that, you can follow my stuff. And of course, we're still Addict Radio. We have a Discord, much like yours. I think you're on it. We shoot the shit. We share memes. We have a good time. Our merch. Just check my link tree on Twitter. It's all there.
And you're on Feet Finder, right? OnlyFans, Grinder, all that stuff, right?
In incognito mode, yes. But I'm under a different guise there, and I'm not of legal sense to divulge that information. I'll tell you off air.
Okay, yeah, we'll get all the information. We'll take this offline.
Once again, thank you to Fretz for joining me on this episode. Always a lovely, lovely time with Mr. Fretzel. Go check out the Fretzlemania podcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts, all of this stuff will be in the description below. Join the Discord, which he's also a part of. So if you want to hop on in, I'll put a link in the description as well. And follow me on all those. You know what? I think we might as well just dive right into this bad boy. Hit that jingle, Bartholomew.
WCW, ECW, WWF, who's the hardest promotion? Eric or Vince or Paulie? I think we can agree, though, it's mostly shit.
Okie dokie then. Hardest promotion of 1996. What are we thinking, gang? So if you're watching on YouTube, I'm sharing my screen, so you'll be able to visually follow along here. But if you're listening in audio land, I'll walk you through it. Basically, what we have here is a scoreboard with a bunch of different criteria. We got, pay-per-view quality, as well as in-ring quality, out-of-ring quality, just the general roster. Point values are associated to each thing, whether it's negative or positive, whether it's a worst or a best, what have you. We'll get into each individual thing. But first things first, we got to grade this pay-per-view because that'll factor into the points as well. Survivor Series 1996. From a scale of S to F, S being one of the best shows of all time, F being a show that I'd rather chop off my nipple and let it hang and let an alligator eat it. And yeah, so is this show like that? Is this show of the quality of my nipple falling off? I don't think so. I don't think it's that bad. It's definitely a C or a B, I would say. C or B. I'm feeling B, and I've done a few B's in a row here as I'm looking at this. Because I think Bret and Austin definitely ups this up. It's definitely a boost to the show. And there's some fun debuts, but remember, we're not watching this with hindsight. We're watching this as if we were watching live. So yeah, The Rock debuted here, but we're not taking into account like the significance of it. As of right now, he's just this blue chipper young guy with blue tights and a bad haircut. Looks pretty good, but that's not like, oh my God, this is the legendary moment, So, but, you do got like Snuka and Jake Roberts. You got Jake Roberts and Lawler tying up their little thing. Flash Funk. You got Too Cold Scorpio debuting, which is cool. Mankind and Undertaker kind of just spun their wheels a little bit, but it was not a bad match, but nothing really progressed. Not much, really. Can-Am, what's Furnas and LaFawn, the Can-Am Connection? Is that their name? I don't know. So you got some pretty significant stuff here, but as just like, and the main event was it was weird. I think a B minus is what I'm thinking here. Not that it matters here. Is a B too generous? That's what I'm thinking. I think a B is fine. I think Bret and Austin was so good, and Sid winning the title in the main event, even though the match was kind of subpar, was also a cool moment. So this show had a lot of moments, and really, ultimately, that's what it's all about, right? So we'll throw a B at this bad boy. So now we go over to this tab and we see which promotion has the highest average grade in their pay-per-views / special events. And WWF still has the highest grade on average, which leads us to no change because that's what it was beforehand as well. So WWF maintains those 6 points. And just a recap of the overall points so far, and we'll get into all the point changes and whatnot. WWF is currently in the lead with 13. WCW has 5. ECW has 4. So we'll work our way through this scoreboard and see if there's any changes in these scores. So, like I said, WWF maintains at 6 points for the best overall average pay-per-view grade. This show was not the best or the worst of the year. WrestleMania, we gave that an A. Super Bowl has an F. So no changes there. So WWF maintains the 2 points for the best. WCW maintains the -1 for the worst. So, yeah. So, in ring. So, just a general kind of look at the in ring quality of each company. Right now, we're tracking WWF as the best overall. Oh, this is tough because WCW. First of all, I don't think ECW is in the conversation. I think ECW has a lot of great stories, which we'll touch on later. But their in-ring isn't really up to snuff as of this point. In 96, it hasn't been a banner year. Like, they've had some good stuff, but just a lot of garbage as well. So it's between WWF and WCW. WCW has the cruiserweight division, but that's kind of it, honestly, like from just an in-ring perspective. Whereas I think, and this is why I've had WWF at the top, is because they just feel like a more well-rounded product in ring. So I'm inclined to keep it that way. And now we're introducing Too Cold Scorpio and Doug Furnas, Philip LaFawn. We got Rocky Maivia up there. Steve Austin's cooking. Bret Hart's back in action. Sean's still there. Taker and Mick are doing their stuff. I think WWF still holds on to this. So they maintain that 4 points. Best match of the year. So we are currently tracking Shawn Michaels versus Diesel at In Your House 7 as the best. Now, obviously, it's going to remain WWF regardless, but does Bret versus Austin overtake it? Is the question. Which match is better, Shawn versus Diesel in Your House 7 or Bret Hart versus Stone Cold at Survivor Series 96? Let's see. That's tough. They're close. Shawn and Diesel had a little bit more bells and whistles to it. Austin and Bret was a little bit tighter, I would say, from just like the technical aspect of it. Shawn and Diesel was for the title. Bret Austin was not. So you have the stakes kind of factoring in a little bit. Both build-ups were very good. Because the Bret and Austin build-up was kind of on the back of Stone Cold, where I feel like Shawn and Diesel kind of had more of like they both played a part in it. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm talking out loud. Like I said, I don't look at this before I come on here and record. So I'm literally just thinking I'm just talking as I'm thinking. Ultimately, it doesn't matter because it's going to stay WWF and the points aren't going to change. I think Shawn and Diesel keeps it. I just really love that match, man. I think it's a really good match, a really high energy match. So was Bret and Austin, but I think Shawn and Diesel just had a little bit more. I think what puts it over the edge for me is just you have the street fight element, you have the title on the line, main event. I think it's just overall just a better package, but not by much. I think I could be swayed. So when it comes for the finale of this, maybe somebody will throw that at me and provide a better argument, and we'll see. But I'm going to keep it Shawn and Diesel for now as the best. So WWF maintains that 2 points. Worst match of the year, also WWF, also from In Your House 7, Ultimate Warrior versus Goldust. Yeah, nothing on this show was worse than that. So WWF maintains that -1 point. So no changes to the scoreboard yet. So now we're looking at the roster and the star power of each company. Best overall. All right, so WWF has. So we got to think about what has changed since we last looked at this. So right now we're tracking WCW, but WWF since last time has gained Too Cold Scorpio, aka Flash Funk. They've gained Rocky Maivia, which that's not really, I guess that's depth to the roster, I would say. But it doesn't, we're not like I said, we're not factoring in The Rock here. We're factoring in new up and coming Rocky Maivia. Stone Cold, like I said, his stock is rising, so he's becoming sorry. He's becoming just choked on my own cum there. He's becoming a bigger factor. What else? Yeah, Terry Gordy's there. The tag division, you got, Furnas and LaFon. You got Marty Jannetty's gone now, I guess. Yoko's gone. Doesn't really matter. I'm gonna keep it WCW. Just because I think they have so many, like the main event scene is loaded, right? You got Hogan, Piper, Macho. I mean, just from a star power, Luger and Sting, of course. Sting's going through his transformation. But you also have the cruiserweight division holding it down from a work rate perspective. And then you got some stuff in the middle. So I think WCW overall just edges WWF out by a little bit. So they maintain that 4 points. Wrestler of the Year, we're tracking Mankind. I think it's too late for Bret to take it over because he hasn't been much of a factor this year. Sean, I've kind of been debating between Mankind and Sean. I don't think Sean did himself much favors with this show. I think Sean had a better I think Mankind had a better performance than Sean on this show. Sid, I get now, not better than Mankind. Because it also kind of takes into account his ECW stuff from early '96 as well. So just like an incredible range of stuff from Mankind from a character perspective, but also in ring has been killing it. So I think we'll stick with Mankind here for best of the year, for wrestler of the year. So WWF keeps that 2 points. Worst of the year, Ultimate Warrior. Yeah, I can't think of anybody from this show that would overtake it. So, we'll keep it with Ultimate Warrior. So WWF maintains that -1 point. So now we look at the out of ring, the next criteria. So this is gimmicks, characters, promos, storylines. Best overall. Right now we're tracking ECW as the best. Found a fucking piece of falafel underneath my keyboard. We are tracking ECW as the best. Because we got Taz and Sabu's really cooking now. Shane Douglas, Pitbulls. I mean, if you listen to one of my most recent episodes, November to Remember 1996, yeah, you'll hear about all of the crazy storyline. The Dudleys, Raven and Dreamer, Raven and Sandman. They got a lot of stuff going on here, whereas WWF, look, they got Mankind and Taker, which, like I said, is kind of starting to spin its wheels a little bit. Whatever the hell the Sean and Jose Lothario stuff, don't really care that much. We got Bret and Austin, but Stone Cold's really heating up at this point. So that's something we got to consider as well. He's such a cool character at this point. In addition to Mankind and Taker. But that's kind of it, no? Like, really, like, from anything with substance. Anything else WWF's doing at this point? And you get like the Intercontinental title scene, which is kind of like Mr. Perfect was involved, but now he's gone. Triple H is still champion. Mero's still there, but that's kind of an idol at this point, I feel like. Bret or Owen and Bulldog. They're the tag champions. Furnas LaFon. They won the match, so now they're heating up in the but I still think ECW just has them from top to bottom a more robust set of stories, like just a more engaging set of stories from top to bottom. ECW does. And WCW, while they have the NWO, like I said, that's kind of all they got. You got Hogan and Piper, which is the shits. Whatever that feud that's building at this point. Luger, you got Sting doing his deal where he's up in the rafters. Nobody knows what side he's on. transitioning and into Crow, Sting. So that's good stuff. But this is all kind of NWO adjacent, I feel like. Like we're building a World War III, so there's not a lot of stuff, not a lot of meaty stories going on in WCW. So I think so. Best overall, I would say ECW maintains at 4 points. Best character storyline going on right now. We're tracking NWO as the best. You know, it's interesting. You see guys like Stone Cold Steve Austin emerge, which is like a direct answer to the NWO. Part of me wants to say Stone Cold is a more captivating character. But I think NWO is just such a widespread, like it's catching fire. You see the fans in the audience wearing the NWO shirts. Like it is something like we've never seen before. So I think NWO has to hold on to that for now. So WCW keeps that 2 points. Worst character / storyline. Tracking Jerry Lawler. You know, he's kind of been low key recently. So he hasn't been as egregious. Seems like we're wrapping up the story with Jake, maybe. So that's something that could change by the end of the year. I mean, did we throw the Executioner in there? Did we throw... I don't think it's that bad. Just I'm thinking anybody else. I don't really think. I mean, the Jose Lothario. Part of me just wants to throw Jose Lothario. It's stupid ass. Super Sock. Yeah, I think Jerry Lawler holds on to this, but something tells me that we might get a WCW or ECW person overtaking this at some point, but I don't know. We'll see. So I think Jerry Lawler holds on to this for now. So overall, all that said, no changes here. No changes to the score. WWF still in the lead with 13. WCW has 5. ECW with 4. So only a few more shows left, folks. Only 3 more shows. We got 2 more WCW shows and 1 more WWF show. And then comes the finale. So we'll see how this whole thing wraps up. When that finale comes, like I'm going to reach out. I'll post it on social media. I'll post it in the Discord. I'll say it on here as well. Feel free to send in your input. You disagree with any of this stuff? You can send in a video. You can send in an audio. You can send in a scratch and sniff something, and I'll try to decipher it, whatever. But more on that when we get closer, but keep an eye out for that. So good times. Good times. Well, hey, appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you getting inside here and noodling about a bit as we talk about some wrestling. Can I tell you what a child I am? I looked over to my left on my little Amazon show thing that has like the date and time and the weather, and said it was 69 degrees outside, and I just couldn't get that out of my head. I'm a fucking child. Anyways, I'm going to go outside and enjoy that 69-degree weather. Thank you all for joining in. Love you. Smooches. Mwah. I'm hard.
Yeah. And the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. It's the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it.